Dr. Dr. Sarah Sierra is actually a physician in Colombia, and we met at the Mind Body Medicine training program. It was, I think, 400 plus people across the world that were in this training program, and I actually was on screen with all 400 plus people talking about the work that I'm doing UPMC. She sent me a private message and said, hey, I'm in Pittsburgh. And so that's how we met. I think it was back in July. So since then, she's been to rotate with me. She's actually working on a lot of projects with me for, some virtual retreats and, virtual programs and, all these different things. So, and she takes care of patients in Colombia. So she's taken everything she's learned and using her with her patients in Colombia. She's an anesthesiologist, but hoping to do a family medicine residency here in the US so that she could do this work with her patients here in the US. So my gratitude to her. And then to Dana Messmore. Dana is actually an integrative dietitian who has been with me for the past 2 years. My heart is so full of love for this human being who has taught me so much about just things in medicine that we all do wrong. A lot of patients come to her crying because of the way physicians talk to them and the way that they really are not embracing people's own journey with food. So, the most important thing I think is meeting a person where they're at, being body positive, not being weight focused, not food shaming, not creating food fear, and really just helping the person to make good choices because they want to for their body, because they love their body, not for any other reason, but because they love their body. So, and she's done the Mind, Mood, and Food training through through Center for Mind Body Medicine with me. And I'm just going to turn it over to these two ladies. I'm going to be a fly on the wall and only chime in if needed.
Thank you so much for your introduction. So I am going to share with you some very hard science data, and then Dana is going to join me to bring all this data to earth and teach us how we can actually start practicing all this healthy lifestyle with in a way that makes us also happy and increases our well-being. So as Dr. Melissa said, I am an anesthesiologist. I am also a health coach and integrative nutrition coach. And all this started with my own health. I changed my diet and saw such an incredible results in my health and my well-being that I am really passionate about this topic. So I'm going to start sharing my screen now. So the objectives of this talk are to describe where are we in the United States, what is the nutritional profile of this country, what is the education we receive in med school and in the residency programs if we are really prepared to tackle these problems we have. What are some dietary patterns and how they relate to disease burden? What options are out there, including whole food plant-based diet and the Mediterranean diet for disease prevention and well-being. And at the end, and I think the most important, is how to apply the science in daily life, be healthy and also be happy. So as you know, we have a chronic disease epidemic in America. More than half of the population have a diagnosis of a chronic condition, and 4 in 10 have 2 or more chronic conditions, and all this is costing the nation $3.5 trillion every single year. The good news is that most of these chronic conditions can be prevented or even reversed by lifestyle changes and an adequate diet. So where are we? This is a global problem. This is not only here. Unhealthy diet is the main cause of death across the globe, and only here in the United States, it's the cause of more than 500,000 preventable deaths. More than 30% people in the world is overweight or obese, and in the past 30 years, the global prevalence of diabetes has nearly doubled. So this is what we are seeing with adults population. We are getting fatter, we are both men and women with an increasing trend. But what is more concerning is that this is also happening with children under 5-year-old. We are seeing this increasing trend in the last 10 years, reaching to a prevalence of 9.4 percentage of obesity prevalence in children under 5 years. Some of the factors that can contribute to this problem is that we are eating more, but also what we are eating. So this is a meta-analysis that was published on JAMA 2017, and they try to look at the different food components on a diet and see how are they contributing to the disease burden. And the problem is not only that we are eating too much of some of them, including sodium, sugar beverages, and processed meat, but also that we are not eating enough of many things that we should, including nuts and seafood, omega-3 fatty acids. On the right, you can see the graphic. When you go to the paper, you will have the opportunity to see it in more detail, but it just shows in a decreasing rank of priority how these different foods are contributing to the disease burden, being the first one, high intake of sodium, and the second most important, low intake of nuts and seeds. So how are we prepared as physicians to tackle on this? Well, unfortunately, our patients think that we are experts on nutrition, but only half of us, and some studies show that as less as 14% of physicians feel comfortable actually advising their patients regarding nutrition. So, and this makes sense. When we are tested, the average correct responses is only around 50%. So we don't know enough about nutrition, but the good news is that out there are many things we can do. Is the lifestyle medicine college offering some tracks, the culinary medicine, nutrition medicine, etc. So taking that into account, I'm going to throw some data, a very basic overlook of what is out there that can help us physicians like get in touch more what the evidence is behind the diets. And at the end, I will invite Dana to give us a hand to put this all on the daily practice. So this is a meta-analysis that try to look at the different components in a diet and see how they contribute to obesity. What they found is that, not surprisingly, refined grains, when we eat more than 50 grams of refined grains per day, our risk of obesity increases dramatically, and whole grains having a protective effect. What can be surprising, and many of us don't know, is that red meat is also involved or can increase the risk of obesity. Vegetables and fruits having more kind of a protective effect. When we take a look at different dietary patterns and weight loss, this is a randomized trial that divided patients into 5 different diets, including vegan, vegetarian, pesco-vegetarian, semi-vegetarian, or omnivore. What they found is that at 6 months, the ones that were doing better were the vegans and the vegetarian, both in terms of the amount of weight they have lost, but also maintaining the weight loss. So if we want to see what are the benefits of the vegan diet or a plant-based diet, we have to take a look at one of the largest populations here in the United States that have a plant-based diet, and that is the Seventh-day Adventists in Loma Linda, California. This study is the second of a series. They followed up more than 70,000 patients during around 6 years. And what they found is that they are not only 30 pounds lighter than meat eaters, but they are also dying less. They live longer than the average US population, and also they live longer than the average whole globe population. That's why they are one of the blue zones in the world. And they are also less insulin resistant than meat eaters. So if we take a look at this chart, if we take a look at this, yes? Are you speaking? Okay, so if we take a look at this, we can see that the BMI is decreasing as we are more adherent to a vegetarian diet, with the vegan people having the least or the least BMI compared to non-vegetarian diet. And this trend is also repeated in diabetes and hypertension. When people in this Loma Linda population are more adherent to a vegan diet, they have 80% reduction risk of being diabetic or being hypertensive. So we also know that what we eat can be related to our inflammation. This is a study that was published in the American Heart Association journal, and they just randomized 100 patients that were known to have coronary artery disease. They divided them in half of the patients receiving a vegan diet. They gave them everything, the supplies, all the counseling, and the other half were supposed to follow a American Heart Association diet that is mainly composed of low-fat food. And what they found is that the ones that followed the vegan diet had 32% lower C-reactive protein at the end of the 8-week trial. So what about some very popular diets out there? What about the keto diets? So this was a population-based cohort study that pooled all prospective studies, and what they found is that when people eat a low carbohydrate diet, they have increased overall mortality around 22% for overall mortality. For cardiovascular mortality is at 13% increase, and for cancer they have 8% increase. It was done in almost 500,000 patients. So what is most important to know is what is behind this, and this was published on Lancet last year, again with almost 500,000 patients. If we take a look at the graphic on the right, you will see that if we eat too much carbs, we will have a higher risk of mortality, but also if we eat too few carbs, the curve increases dramatically. I mean, the hazard for mortality increases a lot. And it comes is that when they elucidated what they were replacing the carbs with, they found that mortality increased when the carbohydrates were exchanged for animal-derived fat or protein, but mortality was decreased when the substitutions were plant-based. What seems to be behind it is that keto diets increase cholesterol, inflammatory markers, and triglycerides, and decrease triglycerides. So if I have more inflammation, more cholesterol, my risk of cardiovascular disease might increase. This is one of the largest studies done in the US. This is the health professional follow-up study and the nurses health study. And what they found is that the more red meat you eat, the higher mortality you have related to cardiovascular disease and cancer. Everything seems to be lying on our microbiome. The thing is that when we eat meat, our bacteria in our gut take the lecithin that is in the animal protein, and they make a compound that is called trimethylamine N-oxide, or TMAO. And this substance has been shown to enhance the accumulation of cholesterol and in macrophages, and increase the accumulation of foam cells in artery walls and atherosclerosis. This is a study that was published in the New England Journal of Medicine. If we take a look at the graph, what it says mainly is that the more meat we eat, the more TMAO levels in our blood we will have, and the higher risk of death by infarction, stroke, or overall cause mortality increases. So what about fats? Fats are definitely not the bad guys in this picture. What we should do is change the quality of the fats that we are eating. So if we just replace 5% of saturated fats for monounsaturated fat or polyunsaturated fat, we can decrease our risk of mortality as far as 27%. So is there like a middle spot where we can just like enjoy every kind of foods in a moderate amount? And it seems to be the Mediterranean diet. If you take a look here, they in this diet, they include animal protein in moderate amounts. They include fruits, vegetables, they include dairy, eggs. So it's a lot of variety in this diet, including even chocolate, some sweets, some red wine. So the main thing is that this is a diet that includes all groups of foods, but the most importantly is that we are eating mainly fruits and vegetables with 8 to 10 daily servings recommended. This was a study done and published in the New England Journal of Medicine 2018, where they went over almost 8,000 participants that were following Mediterranean diet, they had known high cardiovascular risk, and the most important or the primary endpoint was major cardiovascular events. They follow up these people for almost 5 years, and what they found is that when the group that was assigned to a Mediterranean diet had a 30% decreased risk of a cardiovascular event. Furthermore, those people that were following or having a higher adherence to a more pro-vegetarian food pattern inside the Mediterranean diet had a 42% less all-cause mortality. And this goes beyond diet and dieting, disease prevention, weight management. This also is relating to overall health-related quality of life and happiness and well-being and life satisfaction. This is the first systematic review to examine the effect of dietary patterns on health-related quality of life among the general population, no matter their age or their disease restrictions. And what they found is that people that follow a plant-based diet in tune with the Mediterranean diet have better scores of health-related quality of life, but that people that relies a lot in the highly processed foods and more into a Western kind of diet have lower scores of overall quality of life. And when we take a look at the depression specifically, the results are mainly the same. If you eat more in a Mediterranean diet pattern, or you include more fruits, more vegetables in your diet instead of processed foods, you have a lower risk of having depression. So with all that said, the invitation is to know that the best possible way to eat is in a way that makes you feel healthy, but also happy. And that is totally normal to not eat perfectly every single day. And to expand on this topic, I want to invite on Dana, that is going to talk about more into intuitive eating and how to bring all this data that I just threw out into our daily practice. So Dana, please.
And then I realized I muted myself. So sorry about that. I'm Dana. I'm the dietitian. Thank you, Sarah. That was awesome. Yeah, so I love this slide. It is perfectly normal to not eat perfectly. So we can go to the next slide and I'll just keep talking about that. So how do we bring in nutrition, just talking about patients? So kind of like what Dr. Michelle said, I do hear a lot of patients, they come in and they know they need to lose weight, but they don't know where to start. And they feel like if they have to adopt this massive lifestyle change, it's just too big. And then they end up doing nothing, or they'll be really strict for a short period of time and then they fall off. And that just doesn't really make sense long-term. So I always tell them, we always add foods. We don't say, well, we're never going to eat something, because it's not realistic to say, I'm never going to eat a cookie again, or I'm never going to eat this. Like that can work for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. So we just have to meet each individual person where they're at. So I love Dr. Greger's Daily Dozen, just thinking about what, did we get our cruciferous vegetables? Did we get all of our different colors? Did we get fiber? Did we get protein, the healthy fats? We all should be nutritarians. So we have to think, what nutrients does my body need? What does my heart need? My gut microbiome, my brain, what foods will fit me each and every day? And so with that though, obviously with all the research, we know that a predominantly plant-based diet is the best ones. Like that humans have been eating mostly plants for a long period of time. So the research is great, but also it just kind of it's common sense at the end of the day. Like, we just need more fruits and vegetables. So ask your patients, how many servings of fruits and veggies are they getting a day? We don't necessarily need to make it super complicated. If you can't pronounce the ingredients, like in a long label of a food that's in processed food, it's probably not something that humans have been designed to eat. So that doesn't need to be super complicated. Let's see. Yeah, consider all the other reasons to eat besides weight loss. So weight loss is not a great motivator at the end of the day, because when you're stressed out or tired or life happens, you okay, let me think of how I want to explain this. So if you're stressed or you're super tired, your frontal cortex part of your brain, that like lowers, and I think it's called your limbic system, but that's your like hunter-gatherer survival mode, that takes over. So when you're tired or stressed or something happens, you're not able to make those decisions of thinking long term. It's just comfort. How do I get comfortable right now? And that's why a lot of times we stress eat or it goes towards sugar, and we don't really care about what our weight is at that time. We just want to be comfortable. So let's see, what else do we have on that? Okay, so yeah, just bring in more meatless days. Again, we don't have to be totally 100 whole food plant-based. I have so many patients that come in and they say, I'm not being vegan. And I say, okay, that's fine, but let's add in some more foods. Let's try new things. We don't need to eat meat every single day, but we don't need to have these like extremist mindsets where we're all or nothing, black or white. We need to find balance and meet ourselves in the middle. We can go to the next slide. That was kind of a lot. Okay, what is the state of your plate? So 3 to 5 chances every single day. So that's kind of the reason why. Okay, so if diets don't work, we need to not have fear or guilt surrounding our food choices. So if you really want, you know, a burger and a milkshake, okay, that's fine. Be mindful about it. Slow down, enjoy it, be thankful for it, even if it's unhealthy, and move on. So then your next choice will be better. Like if I'm eating a big burger for lunch, I'm thinking in my mind like, okay, well, I better have a salad to get some fiber later because I'll probably be constipated for 3 or 4 days after that. So I'm always thinking, okay, if that's it, I like it, whatever, move on. How am I going to get my fiber in? Because that probably didn't make me feel very good. And at the end of the day, we all want to feel good. And we know certain foods make us feel good and certain foods don't. So I'll get into that when we get into intuitive eating. But the goal is intuitive eating. We shouldn't have to have a dietitian or a doctor or a diet tell us what to eat. We should be able to figure out, how do I feel when I eat certain foods? And that's not going to be something that a diet will tell us. We don't need to do that. Okay, food addiction versus food fears. So food addiction, I think that kind of comes from like the emotional connection that we have towards food, because people can use food as an escape, just like drugs or alcohol. They're not dealing with the root cause of why they're feeling unwell. So and sugar lights up our dopamine, so we feel good. So it's easy to get that food addiction, but that's why all this other mind body medicine stuff that plays a role. We can't put all of the weight into nutrition. It's sleep, it's exercise, mindfulness, everything that we've already talked about today. It's just as important as the food. Okay, next slide. Eat the rainbow. Okay, so this is what I always tell my patients. We just need colors. We don't need to overcomplicate everything, because all the different colors, they all do different things to our bodies. And so I kind of like the thought too that like the earth grew these foods. So if you believe in God or the universe, whatever, these foods do something for us. All the different colors, the phytonutrients, that's, there's anti-cancer properties in the different colors, in the phytonutrients. There's anti-inflammatory properties in these colors. There's no pill or anything that's man-made that's going to give you something that helps fight cancer cells. That's only from the earth. So it's like, for me, I connect with it so much because it's like, God or, the earth, whatever you want to say, that it created the food to keep us alive. So you connect with it in that way. It's even if that's the other thing too. People are really picky eaters when it comes to vegetables, but it takes like 12 different tries of something to really decide whether or not you like it. So we have to view the food that's in front of us a little differently. And Mark Hyman's quote, "Love the food that loves you back." This food is keeping you alive. So even if it doesn't taste the same as a French fry, well, it's doing a lot more for you for the French fry. So like, I love this food more than I love the French fry. Next slide. Okay, this is just, so eating animal protein. So this is what I say too, especially when my patients say, I'm not gonna be vegan, fine, we can do, it's all a journey. So we just meet the people where they're at. But you know, the size, 3 or 4 ounces of meat, that's tiny. That's the size of a deck of cards. That's about 21 to 28 grams of protein. That's a ton of protein. You really don't need more than that in one meal. So if we can just start adopting our plate, so we have a smaller piece of meat, more fruits and veggies, and don't overcomplicate it. And we don't need to eat it every day. But again, we don't need the black or white mindset. It's like, you know, find your sweet spot. Okay, next. Yeah, these are just protein. Okay. Yeah, we can go past this stuff. We kind of went over all of that. So we're gonna go to mindful eating. You can go to the next slide, I'm pretty sure. So what is mindful eating? Mindful eating is, you know, being mindful. So being present in the moment when you're eating the food. Slow down. Think about where the food came from. Think about what nutrients it has. Think about what it's going to taste like, the flavors. If we want to should we do a mindful eating thing right now? Michelle?
Lindsay, do we have a few minutes?
Sure. I mean, I think if people have to log off, then.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. I'll do it.
Okay.
Mute.
Okay.
Mute your. So if you have a piece of food, actually to grab that. And I just put in the chat this book called Meditate Your Weight. I just need to put a light on. Sorry, it's getting dark. Meditate Your Weight on audiobook is great because it takes you through a 21-day journey of looking at your food and also being mindful. So if you have a piece of food that you can grab, if you just want, I have a blackberry. I have a podcast that I had mentioned called Mindful Eating on Decoding Obesity. And actually, we go through it on that. So I'm going to go through it probably a little faster today since we're out of time. But really just pick up your piece of food. Mine is beautifully displayed in this bowl that I love. And I already am starting to actually smell the food that is in front of me. So as you begin to look at your item that you have, really look at it, kind of move it around, look at any of the imperfections that it may have. Nothing is perfect in life, not even your food. And using that sense of sight, really slow down, thinking about where this food came from. Somebody grew this blackberry. Somebody picked the blackberry. Somebody transported the blackberry. Somebody put it on the shelf. Somebody rang it out at the store. Really coming into this space with your food. And then putting it up to your ear. Does it make any sounds? When you roll it around, some foods do, some foods don't. Putting it up to your nose. Sometimes you pick an item that maybe you have to puncture. I just squirted blackberry juice across the room. What do you smell? Maybe put it up to your lips. Do you begin to salivate? And then very, very slowly and mindfully putting it into your mouth. But not chewing yet. And when you do, thinking about the teeth that you're using as you bite down. Thinking about how this is going to nourish your body, the nutrients that it's going to give, the improvement of the diversity of your microbiome, the fuel that it's going to give you. Chewing 25 times before swallowing. And really just that mindful eating actually moves you from the sympathetic state into the parasympathetic state. and you will be able to digest your food better. You will be able to have less heartburn. You know, it just really improves your digestion, less bloating, slowing down and becoming present with your food. Actually, I did a blind dining experience that I found amazing. You could do that at home. It's getting dark early enough now. You just kind of set your table, grab, you know, your dinner, your drink, and then just sit down as a family. All lights off, you know, just the conversation gets louder, everything gets heightened. You know, thinking about the smell of things, thinking about the taste of things, the taste becomes better. You won't have your sight in that, so the smell becomes more intense. The conversation becomes much more crisp because you're actually communicating and talking with one another. So I just encourage you really to practice mindful eating, because we have to eat. So it's one place where you can put mindfulness in your day, even just stopping. And I put 2 hands on the table and take a deep breath before I eat. Some people use prayer. If that's for you, I encourage you to use that, whatever is right for you. So, okay, are we done with the slides here? So I'm going to jump back out. If you have any questions, these will be available on the recording. Again, don't hesitate to reach out to me or Dana Messmore. Thank you to Sarah. Thank you to Dana. Thank you to Melissa. Everybody that's here today, really, for, you know, hanging in there. It was a long, 4 hours of just kind of, it's a lot of information for me to try to take from my head to dump it into yours, but I appreciate you being here. Thank you, Lindsay, for all the help that you did and actually just, picking up where we couldn't get that sound working. So I really appreciate each and every one of you. I see Sarah English is still logged in. She's the person that has helped me with the Dr. Yum, because again, we don't want to try to fix it after it's already a mess. We want to get to those kids. And that's been a really big piece of my heart and my work. Really, like, how can we change this from the beginning? And that is, Sarah, you have really just been, and she has her own website called Breathe Wellness, I think that I say it right. And she does conduct these free classes that are Dr. Yum, and your patients are able to join into them. So if you could put that in the chat box, Sarah, that would be great. She offers classes for Breathe Wellness, Breathe with me, mindfulness. She has her background in health coaching and learning nutrition. And quite honestly, I don't think she said this publicly before, but she really just I'm going to jump out there and say she really just started hanging out with me, and then changed her life, and has then subsequently changed her family's lives. Her husband's lost how much weight? 100 and some pounds. A lot of weight.
150.
150 pounds. He's very healthy in mind, body, and spirit, and constantly working towards that. And they're doing it as a family. So she has a little girl who she adds into this. So as a family, they're doing this. So it's a beautiful journey that I just watched, that overflowed from me to her and overflows from her to the rest of the world. And then again, with Dr. Sierra sharing it with her patients in Colombia, in the country of Colombia, and Dana with our patients here in the system, UPMC, Dr. Melissa Kerr in her practice with physical therapy. It's been a beautiful blessing in my life. I mean, I feel so lucky and fortunate to have been in this space, and I have so much gratitude for each and every one of you for trying to help me change this world. Thank you very much.